Let's take a moment, center ourselves into that inner Christ. We give thanks, God, knowing that it is the Christ within that's our teacher. So we tune in and hear what you have to say from inside. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, we've made it to joy. Yay! All right. Yay! Woo! So we're going to celebrate joy today. We're going to align ourselves with this truth statement. You know why, right? Not to make it true, but because it is true. And as we align our thoughts with deeper spiritual reality, then we help to bring it forward. So I'm going to invite you to affirm this with me. You can use hand motions. You can make your own up. You can follow me. You can blink your eyes. You can tap your toes. You can wiggle your tongue. You can do whatever you want. Just get yourself engaged, okay? So let's affirm this together. My life is a celebration of joy. My life is a celebration of joy. My life is a celebration of joy. And if you want to, I invite you to turn to somebody near you and affirm that truth for them. Life is a celebration of joy, Carol. She comes. All right. So today you can feel it bubbling, right? You can feel that joy bubbling? Well, I have a little story for you. Because sometimes with the bubbling joy comes the frenzy. You ever feel that? All right. So there was a woman who was like a couple of days before Christmas, and she was in her house frantically, going around making sure everything was clean, making sure she had all the details ready for the Christmas dinner, making sure, she had the last minute details done, and she hears the doorbell ring. Ding dong. All right. So she goes and appropriately, she looks through the peephole, and she sees a man who appears to be from the post office. He has on a post office uniform, and he's holding out a package, and she says, well, who are you? What do you want? And he says, ma'am, I have a package for you, but I need you to sign for it. And she's looking, and she's still suspicious, and she says, I need some ID. And he hollers through the door. He says, ma'am, he said, if I wanted to break into your house, I would just use these. And he pulls up her keys that she had left stuck in the door. Okay. So we get that way sometimes at Christmas, right? We get frenzied and we get frantic and we're running around in circles and we forget stuff and we kind of do things that maybe we wouldn't do at another time of year. And that can be a little frustrating. But the bottom of it, if you look down underneath all of that frenzy, what you find is truly enthusiasm. And you find that spiritual principle of joy, because that's the impulse of joy. So if we find ourselves in that frenzy or find ourselves doing things like leaving our keys stuck in the door or whatever we do, is just take a moment and take a breath and allow ourselves to go deeper and to not, get mad at ourselves about the stuff, that we do. We're human. Just take a little breath deeper and go, oh, that's just my joy showing up, right? That's just my joy showing up. And when we take that breath and when we take that moment to relax and we take that time to let go and move into that deeper awareness, we find that we calm down a bit and that joy begins to shine through us in a way that may feel more pleasant, right? In a way that we can enjoy more as we do whatever it is that we're doing to get prepared, whether we're buying gifts or receiving gifts or whether we're decorating or just anticipating getting together with the family. That can stir you up, right? That we're looking forward to it, and at the same time, sometimes we have some anxieties about that. So we can be the one in the midst of that situation, whoever we're with at Christmas, or even if we're by ourselves at Christmas, know that we're always with God. God is always with me, and we can take a breath in the midst of whatever the situation is, and we can be the one that centers in the calm in the room, right? We can just take a breath and be in that place of calmness, and we don't have to say a thing. It will radiate out into the room, and it will have a positive effect. At the least, we won't be contributing to the frenzy, right? And at the most, we absolutely will be radiating vibrations of peace and those vibrations of joy, and it will be felt by everybody in that situation. So today, as we celebrate joy, we're going to talk about the wise men, because the wise men were being guided by joy. They were being guided by the joy of the star, and they were going toward joy. And that's how spiritual principles work. They are both what propel us forward. They are both what give us the energy and the impulse to move forward. And they are also what we are learning for and yearning for. So we're going to be looking at this principle of joy. Joy is an energizer. Joy is that which motivates us. It's what gets us interested and going in life. It's what allows us to see what's good in life and to focus on that and to experience it and then to move forward into greater expression of it. So I'm going to read the whole story about the wise men. This is in Matthew chapter 2, starting with verse 1. So in the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem. Now, wise men, what he's talking about, in other terms, I'm sure you've heard this, they're called magi. Who were the magi? They were the astronomers / astrologers of their day. And that's how astronomy started, really with what we would call astrology now. But it's the people that were keen observers of the heavens, and there was lots and lots of wisdom in the ancient world, and people that were close observers in all cultures of the sky. And these were the people from the east who were very learned, who were very wise, who watched the skies and who paid attention to what was going on and made predictions. They understood something. It's not magic, but they made they had understanding about how we're all connected and about how the whole universe works together. So the wise men had seen a star, and they were the only ones that saw it. And you can take that however you want. But they were people that were tuned in, and they were going to follow this because they felt, and through all of their studies, had told them something good is going to be happening here, something amazing. So they came from the east, and they came to Jerusalem. They were heading west. And they came into town, and they asked, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? Because we have observed his star at its rising, and we have come to pay him homage." So take a moment and think about that. Think about what they may have experienced. Here are these, we don't know where in the east they came from, probably from Persia, maybe farther east, we don't know. We don't know anything about them. We don't even really know that there were three. The idea that there were three wise men comes from later on when they gave the Christ child 3 gifts. So that's where that idea comes from. We don't know, like I said, any details about them, but what's evolved over the centuries, which is beautiful, which speaks to the universality of the Christ child and of Jesus' life and message, is that they are generally speaking of 3 different ethnicities. And so that's a beautiful image, because what it's saying is that we're all expressions of God, and it's the whole Jesus Christ message, the whole Jesus Christ life is about universality. That is one of the big ideas in the Christian path. It is about God is God of all people, and that everything about what he did and said in his ministry and his adult life was all about, I'll talk to anybody. I'm a friendly guy. And he did, because he was telling us that we're all brothers and sisters, that we're all one in God. And he was dismissing this idea that was prevalent in the ancient world and unfortunately is rearing its head again, that somehow we're different and separate and we should be mad at each other and fuss over scraps. And he was like, oh no, y'all missed the boat here. That's not the deal. And we need to remember that and to renew that message. And this Christmas, I hope for more than anything, that's the message that rises up in our hearts. I got a beautiful Christmas card the other day from IACT, which we participate in, from the Interfaith Action Council. And the front of it was the photograph of one of the scenes from our recent Thanksgiving service, the IACT Thanksgiving service. And across it was the slogan that IACT has really been using a lot this year. And it said, "Thank you for remembering that we belong to each other." That's the message of Christmas. That's what it is that we need to know and that we need to proclaim and that we need to live. Our world is hungry for this, and the time is now to live that and dismiss all this mess that goes on about how we're so cruel to each other. That has no place in God's world. So we're ready to release that consciousness and to remember the truth that's evident in the Christmas story in a lot of different ways. And we studied that in our Christmas class. It's all over the place in that Christmas story. that God is the universal creator, that God is the God of everybody. Whatever name you may want to call God or whatever path you walk. It's all in that Christmas story, and it's all in the life of Jesus. So these wise men came, and they're going to pay him homage. So imagine this: they strike out. They don't even know really where they're going. They're following a star. Have you ever done that? I bet you have. That you're following that star of your intuition. You're following that star of your joy. You're following that star that feeling of bliss, that feeling of grounding in what truly opens your heart and what opens your life and what expands you. And you're willing with faith to make a choice to step out of what might be your little box. You're willing to make the growth choice rather than staying locked in your fear. We've all done that, right? And we are called to do that in greater and greater ways. At every moment, we're called to step out of the fear box and make a choice for growth, make a choice for the expansion of consciousness. And when we do that, like the wise men, I mean, who knows? They had to cross probably deserts. They had to cross mountains. Who knows how long their journey took? We don't even know that. You know, we always imagine that they were on camels. We were assuming that. There's always, there they are, camels. Are there camels up there? Yeah, there's one. There's a camel. Okay. Probably they were. Who knows? I don't know. But somehow they made it, right? And they dealt with what was in front of them. They dealt with the challenges. They dealt with perhaps moving through areas where people maybe were scared of them, like, who are these people? You know, and maybe they had to deal with some hostilities. That's all part of the spiritual growth journey. It's all that's within us. What is it within us that seems hostile to our growth? Negative ideas that we learned about ourselves, untruths that we learned about ourselves, perhaps that we're not worthy, perhaps that we don't have the energy or the strength to do what is ours to do. All of that stuff we face, and as we face it one by one, as it shows up on our journey, we face it, we open to the presence and the power of God. We remember the quest. Why were they going on this goofy journey? People must have asked them, where are you going? And they had to say, I don't know. I'm following a star. I imagine they got a few laughs, right? You've had that happen. Probably we all have. People that say you're goofy, you're silly, you're foolish for following your inner life. Get a job, right? And it's okay to have a job. We need a job. And we need to do them in ways that fulfill us, in ways that bless us, in ways that expand our consciousness, not just to stay in a fear box, to do what we do because it expands love, not because we're afraid to step out. So they met all this, and then they got to Jerusalem, and they were asking around. They said, where's this baby who was born king of the Jews? Well, you can imagine that did not make the king happy that was already sitting on his throne. That was King Herod, and he probably was disturbed, and he was. It says, when King Herod heard this, he was frightened, because he figured, okay, if somebody else is the king, I'm in trouble, right? Because he was thinking all in the external. So we have within us that King Herod consciousness, that part that's all focused out here and feeling like we have to defend ourselves, that fearfulness. So he heard this, and he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him, because they were like, uh-oh, something's not good. It's going to be an upheaval here. And so he called together all the chief priests and the scribes of the people, and he inquired of them where the Messiah, that one who was to express God's light, where was this Messiah to be born? So they told him, because they said, well, he's going to be born in Bethlehem of Judea, because it's been written by the prophet. And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel. So this is relating to some old covenants that God had made with the people of Israel and their relationship with God. So that is referencing to that. So then Herod secretly called together call for the wise men, and he learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. So he was making calculations. So, our outer self will do that, right? It'll say, okay, now just when did you start having these goofy ideas, right? Let's talk. And it'll interact with you, and you'll think, I don't know. You waver. Those are the times that we waver, right? We're like, I don't know. What should I do? What's the right thing? What's really going to be the best for me? And that's okay. We have to sort that stuff out. But then, so he was trying to calculate all this because Herod had a plan, right? Where he was going to defeat this king. And inside of us, that's our outer focus fearfulness is, I'm going to mess this thing up because I'm scared and I'm going to stay in the box and I'm not going to let you, inner life, live. That's the wrestling. We do it, and we have to also confront that to grow. So then he sent the wise men to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you found him, bring me word so that I may also go and pay him homage." Well, we know that was a trick, right? That was a big trick. So then we move on. So when the wise men had heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had seen at its rising until it stopped over the place where the child was. So that's what happens to us when we just say, talk to that fearfulness and just say, okay, and we move on. And we move on into that life, into the light, into the sense of expansion, into the sense of love, into the belief in abundance. I believe that I'm a child of God. I believe that I express love and light and abundance. I believe that I am guided by divine wisdom, and I believe that I am an enterprise, a special enterprise of God, that I am needed and valued and wanted in this world. And so we do that, and we can come to rest. We can come to rest in that awareness. We can come to rest in that consciousness. And when we do that and stay in that place and bring that place into our time of meditation, bring that place into our living, what happens for us then is that we find the child. We come to that place where that light is shining. And so when they found where the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. And that's the feeling in us, that I'm overwhelmed with that joyfulness that bubbles from within. And on entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and they paid him homage because they knew it's not worshiping something outside of us, but it's being in awe, being in wonder of this life that is who we are, that's within us. And then they opened their treasure chests. They offered him gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh. And those are spiritual gifts. Those are affirmations of the spiritual quality of our lives and of the power of prayer and the power of transformation. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. That's the wisdom in us. When we come to that place in our lives where we know that I don't have to pay attention to what my fearful self is trying to get me to do. I can release it. I can let go. I can choose to go another way. And as we do that, any power of fearfulness, any power of smallness, any power of meanness begins to dissolve in our lives because we're not giving it attention, we're not giving it energy, and it begins to dissolve and it heals. And bit by bit, one day at a time, it goes away because we have chosen to go another way. That's the opportunity for us at every moment, is to always choose to follow the star, right? And we have to choose it over and over and over again, every day in our lives. And it's always at a deeper level. It's always at a bigger place. It's not like there's no such thing as backsliding, by the way. Life is a spiral. And so we're always choosing at a new level of growth. Yes, at this juncture, yes, I will follow the star. And as we do that, what happens to us is that we're energized and we are propelled into our spiritual lives in bigger ways. And it takes commitment. It takes willingness and it takes courage. I want to share this with you. It's a reading by a man named Jim Kelsey, who was, I believe, a minister in another denomination, and it's very beautiful. He's talking about change, because that's what happens to us when we follow that star, right? This transformation on the inside, and what happens is their outer changes. So he wrote this. He said, "This is something I found to be true without exception, that when we, any of us, focus on things in our lives that are passing away, we get scared, we get anxious, we get depressed, and we lose hope. And when we focus on things that are being birthed and are coming newly into creation, we get excited, we get imaginative, we get optimistic, We feel drawn closer to one another. We feel as if we have meaning and purpose in life, and we have joy. He believed that change was God's opportunity for us. And so that as we are confronted in every moment with the opportunity to follow that star, yeah, we're going to have to let go of some stuff, right? It's probably going to scare us. Some old ideas, some old resentments, some ways that we've thought or seen things. And that's okay. We may grieve a bit. And as we move through that grief and as we move through the possibility of what we're letting go of, we let go of it. And what happens to us is we move into a whole new realm. We move into excitement. We move into enthusiasm because we're focusing on the birth in our consciousness of that Christ child. The Christ is always in us, simply that we're waking up to it, that we're birthing our awareness of it. So I share with you this beautiful poem by Anonymous. I don't know who wrote this, but I love it. It's just a gorgeous poem. And it's called, If You Look for Me at Christmas. And it's sent to us with great love by the Christ within. So here's the Christ within speaking to us. If you look for me at Christmas, you won't need a special star. I'm not just in Bethlehem. I'm right there where you are. You can be aware of me amid the celebrations. You can find me in the giving and in the decorations. When you take a moment from your list of things to do and listen with your heart, you'll find them there within you. You're the one I want to be with. You're the reason that I came. And you'll find me in the stillness, for I'm whispering your name. Let's pray. Thank you, Father, Mother God. We're so grateful today for your presence in us. And we give thanks that in this time of Christmas and this time of Advent, we're opening ourselves in deeper and more wonderful ways because we know you're with us. We can do it to awareness of your love. And so it is. And we affirm this in the name and through the nature of the living, loving Christ presence. Amen.